Welcome back. So we've taken a look at South African Airways, and we're hoping to hear more about their long-term strategy. But more importantly, it is about tourism, and tourism figures have increased in 2012. They were up around 10%. And who better to speak to about tourism than Richard Quest? And you're still with us. Thank you, sir, once again for your time.
Well, she's been very polite. I'll stay until they kick me out. So they haven't.
You're doing okay, Richard.
Never mind, he's still with us. They haven't kicked me out. Yet. There's still time.
All right, so basically,
I'm waiting to hear what I'm waiting for the email from SAA from what I've just been talking about, saying, what on earth are you saying? You will be seated next to the toilets on your way back, and we will bang your chair every step of the way.
So you came with SAA?
Of course I did. 6 foot.
And you're basically a tourist here because you're staying more than one night, and that is the formal definition of what a tourist basically is. So tourism figures up 10% last year, 9 million people, Richard.
This is a phenomenal success story in South Africa. Tourism South Africa, the authority, has done a blindingly good job over many years in promoting this country. The strategy, the design, I mean, it's not all Leo the Lion. I keep going on about Leo the Lion all the time, but 10% increase, 9.2 million tourists. This is a great success story for the country.
All right, I like breaking the numbers down further, and the truth is that most of the 9 million people that came, actually 6.6 million of these people are from our neighbors, from the SADC region. And this is the thing, the African tourist numbers are far stronger than what we see coming through from Europe.
But why are you so surprised?
It's not so much, I mean, it's about the spenders, right? It's about how much money they spend when they come into SA.
Stop being elitist. You're doing the normal elitism that basically says we'll only take that high spender from Europe, North America, and Australasia. The truth is, this is where the growth numbers, this is where the growth numbers. Zimbabwe, a rising middle class, still got some way to go, but up 19%. Mozambique, a country absolutely thriving at the moment with industry and excitement and money.
This is where it becomes interesting. Lesotho has a population of 2 million people. 1.6 million people came into South Africa from Lesotho. The question is, what are they doing when they come here? Are they just spending? Are they buying, general goods? Are they spending money that will boost smaller players in the tourism industry?
Doesn't matter. They may be buying bread and milk in 2013. But these people in 2015, 2016, 2020, they will be the new rising middle class of Africa, and they will be the big spenders. And frankly, if you can get growth of 20% out of Zimbabwe in the future, that is where your industry goes. Look at the numbers in terms of where the other people come from, and you start to see exactly how it all fits together.
I just came back from the World Economic Forum on Africa and the tourism in Durban, and there was one message. It's about integrating Africa. It's about African countries working together. But one of the biggest questions, are we actually competing against each other? And what is your sense with regards to African tourism? Because countries want to work together, and we had a big African delegation on the tourism front at this year's Tourism in Durban.
Yeah, I have never I'm not very popular because I do believe to a certain extent, yes, the rising tide lifts all boats, no question. But tourism's a zero-sum game. Now, these are the ones, look at you, these are the ones you want, aren't they? You just love...
this is recovered from the UK, it's up 4.2%.
Yeah, but it's never going to get much bigger.
Yeah.
480,000, keep it around there, it's up 4%. The US will get bigger, it's up 13%. Let's say you can get that up to 500,000. That's okay, that's a nice number to take. Germany the same, up 13%. You might then get up to 13, but
this is where it's exciting.
This, 60%. Now, if you continue to get 60% growth from China over the next decade, and bearing in mind the billion travelers that will come from China, 1 billion people making journeys in and out, or 1 billion journeys every year, you start to see China moves very rapidly up to the top.
So you're saying the key growth areas, Africa, and you're excited about China right now. And does that pertain to what we see globally, or is it just sort of a South Africa story for you?
No. I've been at numerous tourism conferences, all of whom say exactly the same thing. The long-term growth from China, if it continues at that sort of rate of expansion, will give a phenomenal boost. You're going to have hundreds of millions of journeys. And where are they going? They're going to Australia, to Europe, the United States, and they're going to South Africa. That's where the tourism is going. So yes, China moves up the chart The UK probably stays number one for another year or two, maybe 3, but eventually is overtaken, I would think, by the US and certainly China.
All right, so BRICS nations, and one of the themes that also came through at the BRICS summit was, we're talking about working with the other emerging market nations, but it's difficult to get in and out of countries, visa requirements, all those issues. I mean, what is your sense? Do you think that could happen? Where we could see the borders opening up? Do you think it should happen?
In an ideal world, you would have a single market for tourism, so that the person who comes to South Africa goes to Botswana, maybe to Kenya. You all sort of share. But I still believe it's a zero-sum game. You want them here first. That 10%, but the African tourism number, that is the crucial number. You are going to find your tourism growth comes intra-Africa, regional tourism. They're not as sexy. The spend isn't as great at the moment, but it's the growth area. And so keep the elitism down and look to where the money's being made.
And I like
because
looking at money.
Look at this.
Exactly. This is exciting.
Game, set, and match here.
Almost 50 billion spent by African tourists.
Right,
Total spend 76 billion rand last year.
Right, now let's just take the spend again.
Yeah.
If it continues at a rate of, say, 10%, you're only going to put 1.5 on there. Carries on at that, you get a bit 6. But if that continues at that rate of spend, the future for tourism in South Africa is both intra-African, Australasia and Asia and China, with a bit of Europe and the United States thrown in.
I mean, 6.7 billion is not really exciting when you look at these numbers
right
now. I mean, and obviously Chinese...
No. 6.7 billion versus the numbers that you saw of people who are coming here. Take the European number, 15.8 billion, but that comes from 480,000 Brits and 300,000 Germans. So their spend is considerably greater. You do need that, because that's your 5-star luxury accommodation. That's your Leo the Lion safari. That's your one and only in Cape Town. That's your premium cabin at the front of SAA. That is the future for the up-and-coming middle-class growing economy and tourism industry.
So, Richard, as a tourist in South Africa right now, what are your biggest concerns and fears? Would you say it's crime? And what are the topics that, and I allude to the tourism in Durban again, I spoke to some of the key industry players, and they're like, no, Eleni, it's not crime. It's mostly about cost, it's about airport taxes, and basically the local currency.
Well, who are you talking about? Let's stay with this chart for a moment. Who are you talking to? If you're talking to the Africa, intra-Africa, it's going to be costs. How much does it cost to come in? What's the cost of accommodation? What's the cost of food? Very basic things like that. If you're talking, I say, for the Americas and Europe, those high-spending tourists that you do want, and South Africa has a potential here for a beautifully balanced tourism industry. Not so much on those numbers, but you get the idea. If you look at the numbers of arrivals, crime, costs, crime again.
Is this your concern as well?
Are
you worried about crime? Are you,
Well, I'll give you an example.
Has anyone prepped you about how to walk in the streets in South Africa?
No, but I'll give you a small example. Here in Johannesburg, the other night, I had to go to meet some friends, and it wasn't that far from where I was, and I just happened to mention to the hotel, oh, shall I walk? It's only half a kilometre. It's a nice evening. Shall I walk? Their immediate, shock, horror, don't even think about it, we'll get you a car. Now, people will still come here. They will still love to come here, but you've got a perception problem. And when it comes to doing business here, of course, that is an issue as well. But I do urge you again and again, keep your eye on the... She's a woman for the numbers. She loves the data. Keep your eye on the numbers.
But this is a beautiful story that it tells. Have you heard...
News that moves. eNCA.com.